Okay, welcome back to the Atlanta Construction Podcast. Today we have Barry Osmun, founder and president of AzSpecd Solutions, a construction sales agency specializing in renewables. And Barry is a graduate from St. Thomas University with the Bachelor of Arts, and also I think you have an MBA from University of Phoenix, and that was something you did online, Barry, in 06? Or?
Yeah. People always ask me why the University of Phoenix, and I got two reasons. It was cheap, and they, a lot of times your MBA has to be done in 2 years. So University of Phoenix allowed us to stretch it out over 4 years. So when you're working full time, that was a great option. So.
And you got 35 years sales experience in construction. You're 15 years with Shaw Brick, and you're with Pella Windows for 4 years, and then the Stone Depot.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, you've worked for some, so glazing, cladding, masonry. You've got the whole building envelope side pretty much covered at this point.
Yeah, I did. Actually, my very first job at St. Thomas was in the roofing business. That was my first sales job, and I guess probably opened the door. How I get into construction sales. I took a inside sales job with a company called Marathon Equipment, and they were a Toronto company. And Dan, you must remember those big old orange kettles that they used to use for roofing to boil the tar. Well, that's what they made. So
I don't know if that was before my time. I don't remember.
Yeah, might have been. Yeah. Well,
I want to say yes and just agree with you.
Yeah. Just nod. Yeah. So anyway, there's still a few kicking around, but anyway, that was their claim to fame, and so I get into that and a little bit into specifications, and they did we did the torch on roofing and that type of thing. So that was kind of when I was at St. Thomas. I had always thought that I was probably going to go into teaching. That was my thing, and it's just funny how the world goes. This was kind of early mid '80s, and started out with my BA, and the intention was to go back after I got my BA. At the time, you could go back for 1 year and get your teaching your BEd. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to be a teacher. So I started majoring in English, and I was going to teach English. Loved English, and but about halfway through my second year, every time I picked up a paper, it was like 50 teachers laid off, 100 teachers laid off. We were going through that stretch, and I was thinking, you know what, geez, I better switch gears here pretty quick because I got student loans to pay and everything. Yeah. So I ended up with a double major. I ended up, after my second year, I started taking economics credits. So I ended up with a major in economics and English. And, kind of fell into my first sales job.
You're not the first sales guy or business development guest we've had that had a Bachelor of Arts. There's been a couple.
It's amazing, and I'm glad you said that, because I know back when I decided to take my BA, I remember people saying, my mother included, "What are you going to do with a BA? What's that going to get you?" And I said, well, I don't know. It's going to get me an education. And what the BA really gave me was just a well-rounded, I like to say almost it's a high school education that I didn't get. A well-rounded education that allowed me to kind of put logical arguments together and to back up what I'm saying, and to, I can do a great presentation now, and I couldn't before that. So
there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot to drill into there, because I think, it's like the Boston Consulting Matrix, consulting company. The best investment you can make over the course of your lifetime is education.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Never a waste. And even though maybe it's not as directed or specific as if you're going to be a doctor or something career driven, or an engineer or an architect, you're right. It kind of gives you that broad, opens doors and gives you the broader base of knowledge, and then the fear level for these things you have no radar for become less fearful, and all of a sudden you'll do a presentation, or or how to articulate yourself, really.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I mean, here I am talking like I had a choice. So, you know, funny story how I ended up at St. Thomas. So, you know, my childhood was a little bit tumultuous. My dad had cancer, and
You grew up in Miramichi, right?
in Miramichi, yeah. And my dad ended up about a month or so after I graduated from high school, died from suicide. So because of that, I decided, you know, I just had no idea what I wanted to do. I was, you know, out of high school. My marks in high school were horrid. Not because I wasn't smart, but I just didn't apply myself. I wasn't challenged.
Yeah, that part of your development.
I was playing a lot of hockey. I was working at Kmart part-time, and, you know, with everything going on with Dad and everything. So my marks were like, if 50 was a pass mark and I got 50, I was happy.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So I remember going over to interview with the registrar at St. Thomas and bringing my transcript in and sitting down, and I'm sweating like a cat in a rocking chair factory, right? And he's not saying anything. He's looking at my marks, and he's you know, and geez, you know, as 10 minutes went by, silence, and finally he says, "These aren't very good, Mr. Osmond, are they?" I said, "No, they're not." He said, "I assume you have an explanation." And so, you know, I just laid it all out, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "I'll tell you what I'm going to do." He said, "I'm going to let you in on academic probation." So I was on probation right from the get-go. Usually it takes you a year to earn academic probation. I was given that standard before I even stepped foot on campus.
You were a good salesman even back then.
I was a good salesman even back then. So, and he said, you know, if you don't have at least I think it was a C+ equivalent in GPA at Christmas, when you go home at Christmas, if you don't have that GPA
of 3.0 or
yeah,
whatever, you know.
take your stuff with you. You're not coming back. So
Yeah.
I said, well, that's fair. I said, all I want is a chance. You know, so he said, oh, okay, I'm giving you that chance. So I remember going home telling my mom, you know, what he had said and everything. And she said, well, I guess I won't give up your room just yet, Dad.
Just in case.
Just in case. And listen, in fairness to my mom, God love her, I mean, I'd never given her any reason up to then to think otherwise. So
Right.
So yeah. So
Here you are now with your own business.
Yeah,
and
my own
an
business
MBA
and
from-
MBA, and but yeah, long story short, I got there and learned how to apply myself, and yeah. So rest is history.
Yeah, so tell us about AzSpecd Solutions and, you know, your whole goal. You know, you started in 2018, but you're really focused on energy efficient materials, and obviously that's very important and key to the industry right now. It's something that's involved in every project, and it's front and center of mind, no matter public, private, residential, commercial. Just tell us a little bit about the journey of how you started AzSpecd and kind of the vision.
Yeah, so I started. So my first venture into entrepreneurship was 2018. I formed. I left Stone Depot, and was kind of wondering what I was going to do, and so decided to take the plunge. I talked to a couple of companies that were looking for manufacturers reps down here, and were willing to give me a little support. So I started that and started just basically as a manufacturer's rep. Represented Indiana Limestone, company named Bolduc Concrete out of Quebec that does concrete pavers and that type of thing. So did that for a little while. Eventually, I had been working with a company called Sunnywee out of Toronto, and they were a husband and wife team of engineers that owned their own company, and they're Chinese Canadian. So I partnered up with them just previous to COVID, and then COVID hit. And at the time, we were importing all of our products in from China. We were doing a lot of aluminum panels. I don't know if you're familiar with the new Lion's Head in the North End that was just built. Well, those are our panels on the Lion's Head. So, that was going well, and like I said, then COVID hit. So
right.
we had to look at different options, different as any business did at that time. You had to pivot quickly, so we started importing PPE of all things. And I didn't know a face mask from a nitrile glove for, I mean, that was not my business, but we had good, strong connections in China, feet on the ground over there that could help. You've probably heard the horror stories.
Masks and things
Oh,
like that.
it was like, people say it was like the Wild West, PPE at the time. It truly was. I mean, we were sourcing products and getting them to the airport. And you had to actually, we had an employee over there following the truck to the airport to make sure it wasn't hijacked by somebody else. Because what was happening, it was all going to the highest bidder. So somebody would come in and say, hey, you know what'd they pay you? They would go to the factory and see all the boxes of masks stacked up and say, what did Barry pay you for those masks? 50 cents? Oh, we'll give you 60. Now all of a sudden they're calling you saying, oh, well, your shipment's been delayed. So that's the type of thing that was going on. But we were able to do some really good things. We shipped a lot of masks to the province of New Brunswick to help them out at a time where they were just struggling to get material and get reliable stuff. So, but that passed, and then I had always had a passion for the environment and the climate, and I was aware of things that were happening as far as the climate goes. And
Tell us about your LEED certification, and you are LEED certified, right?
I am LEED certified, yeah. So I guess that was my introduction into kind of building better and that type of thing. So learned a lot about our values and insulation and building properly. And so LEED certification was probably the predecessor of a lot of the things that we're doing now. Now LEED is I don't want to call it obsolete, but it's almost, there's so many things that have passed since then, like green building and passive houses and that type of thing. But
which is a term used in commercial construction as well.
It is, yeah. And so I took my LEED certification. I think it was just about 2010. Started taking those courses, and that was, I had known from my days in the brick business and that type of thing. I had known about our values, and my time with Pella Windows taught me a lot about glazing and that type of thing.
Yeah, you got a well-rounded envelope. You got everything covered there.
Yeah. So I wanted to take it. I wanted to see how that all fit together, and what LEED really did was bring all of that together. I mean, we talked about simple rain screen systems. We talked about vinyl siding. We talked
about rain screen systems for a second, because I think a lot of people who are working with building envelope companies, or even if it's just a smaller cladding contractor, they're always thinking, what's that rain screen? Was there a screen on the back of those panels? Well, obviously, it's just the system, right? The panel is out with an inch airspace, and then there's place for the rain to fall behind the cladding system in front of the wall assembly, right?
Exactly.
That's all it means.
and you could even call masonry a rain screen system.
It's always rain screen because you got your clips.
You always have an air
brick ties.
You have an air space in behind it. So
it is a rain screen.
It is
itself.
a rain screen.
The whole assembly is a rain screen.
Yeah, people think because you're putting up a brick or a masonry wall that there's no water penetrating there, but I can tell you it is, and that's why they leave the weep holes on the bottom.
But I've been in meetings before, and we're talking to the manufacturer and the estimators, and like, well, these are rain screen. There must be a screen on the back of the panel. How much does that cost? We got to allow a few dollars a square foot for the rain screen. Well, the whole thing's a rain screen.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, listen, a rain screen system is the most basic. I mean, you know what? I bet you 80% of buildings now are rain screen systems of some sort. I mean, you drive around. Drive around Halifax and see, a lot of these developments going up, whether they're ceramic tiles, whether they're aluminum, whether it's brick. I mean, those are all basic rain screen systems. So, rain screen system, basically what the builder's doing is he's making the building airtight with the blue skin. Yeah. And then whatever system goes after that is
there's a filtration for the water to fall down
exactly
over top of the
and the water is actually meant to get behind. You know, that's
It's
how
meant
the
to get behind,
that's how
yes.
the whole system
Exactly.
works, and the air gets back there and keeps things dry and that type of thing. So
It's I think it's good they clarify that though, because as simple as it sounds after you talk about it,
yeah,
but it does confuse people who aren't quite sure. It's just
yeah,
might seem silly,
yeah.
but to you because
it-
you've
It is, and but you know, it's probably the most efficient system we have, and architects love it. I think it's easy for architects to design, and from a builder's or a building owner's point of view, it's economical. It's easy to build for him, and so yeah, so it's and you know, at the end of the day, and now we're starting to see. So you got two options with the rain screen system. A lot of the guys are putting the insulation still on the inside wall,
whether it's spray foam or
yeah, exactly. And then some of the builders or architects prefer something like a rock solid, a rigid
Well,
insulation.
you see that spec a lot, like a board insulation, cavity rock.
You're
That's
starting to see
within
it
this girt assembly.
within the girt, but you still have that airspace. You still need that
Still need
airspace
the
in
airspace,
behind to let everything breathe. So. Yeah, like I said, probably 80% of what you're building is probably a rain screen system now. So
Yeah. Well, tell us about your partners with AzSpecd. Like I think we talked a little bit before we went live about.
yeah,
Am I saying it right? Matrix.
yeah, or Mitrix. Yeah,
okay.
I always want to call it Mitrix.
That's
too,
really
but
cool.
Yeah,
Our building
yeah,
envelope
Mitrix.
people listening will be really interested in like solar. Well, an architectural panel, but it's aesthetically the same, but it's a solar panel in itself. So tell us a little bit about that.
So when I first decided to go into renewables, I mean, I didn't have a product line, Dan. I'm just sitting there. Okay, what am I? If I'm going to do renewables,
Except
what
the 50 lines that you had with all your 30 years before.
Exactly, but you know, they really didn't fit that renewable portfolio,
Right.
that direction that I
okay,
wanted to
yes,
go in.
yeah.
So I was still dabbling in those, thank God, because you know I had to pay the bills. So, but I remember sitting watching the news with my wife one night, and they had this interview on with this CEO from this company in Toronto called Mitrix. And he was talking about this revolutionary new system that they could completely clad buildings, in cladding, windows, whatever, that would generate solar. And I immediately said to my wife, I have to call these guys first thing tomorrow.
Didn't your son say something to you too when you're in New Brunswick? He's an engineer.
Well, yeah. He was kind of the guy that pushed me onto it. He was, we were sitting down having beer and wings, and he's different generation than I am, so he's more in tune with the environment and climate change and everything. That's how he was raised, and he had said to me, he said, Dad, with your experience, your connections, and your architectural background, and everything, like really. You could do so much good with these new products that are coming out.
Because he would come out. He would have came out with a Bachelor of Engineering, and there would have been obviously at that time environmental and sustainability courses would be mandatory.
Absolutely, and and he came up in the social media era as well, where he's being bombarded with the world's, the world's changing and the sea levels are rising and everything. So it was after dinner with him, and I'm driving back, and I don't like use the word epiphany because it seems so cliche, but it was a bit of an epiphany. I was driving back from Fredericton to Halifax.
Struck by lightning, so to speak.
Yeah, and I just said, you know what, he's right. There's I'd always thought about renewables and thought about it in the past, but it didn't challenge me, Dan, because what I saw in the renewable sector was not. It wasn't exciting. It was, you saw these great big wind turbine windmills turning, and solar was a few ugly glass black panels on the roof of a house, and I said I can't really do anything with that, but. Then I got researching, and I just, you just
That's
Googled.
when you made the connection, I assume.
Made the connection.
All the commercial building products that are.
It was just, I said, So then I saw an opportunity. So Mitrix was, like I said, watching their advertisement and what they were talking about. So they basically come up. This is what's called their technology is called BIPV. So it's
Photovoltaic.
building integrated photovoltaic technology is what it's. It's a form of solar. But the difference is that theirs is actually integrated into the building. So they've come up with technology. It started with our good friends, our good friend Elon Musk at Tesla,
Who's that?
who started the Tesla roof and that type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so these guys took that technology and they took it to the next level and beyond, did the testing and the proof of concept and everything. So, yeah, I mean, the exciting thing is now we can completely clad a building in this technology and have it generating profits for the building. So it's just
And aesthetically, it looks like a normal cladding.
yeah. I mean, I was in to see an architect.
You could have a wood grain printed on there, just as easy
anything,
as,
brick pattern, anything. Just as a bit of a social experiment, I was in to see an architect last week, and I just brought this in. I didn't tell him what it was. I just said, "This is a new cladding. What do you think?" And she was, "Oh my God, that's gorgeous! I would love that on my building. I would use that anytime." And then I said, "Well, what if I told you we could wire it up and it could generate solar?" And she was like, just blown away.
That's the tagline right there.
That's the tagline. Yeah, it's like the infomercial. But wait, there's more.
So let's look at it from a few different perspectives. If you're a contractor and you have 20 guys working on the sites and they're all cladding installers for the last 10 or 15 years, this is no different. They don't have to go get a special course to install this stuff. It's going on a rail system on a Z-gird.
No, it's a simple panel. It's been around for years. So it's what they call a honeycomb panel. This sample here, they just put a little wax over it so you don't cut yourself. Mm-hmm. But just basically an aluminum honeycomb rain screen system that sits on a Z-gird and using Z-clip. So that has.
Can it be cut on site? Or does it have to be prefabbed?
It's all prefabbed.
Yeah.
So the commercial stuff is all done off of shop drawings.
Yeah. So you're not cutting that stuff with a wet saw.
You're not cutting that stuff with a wet saw, no. Now the residential stuff, if you wanted to put siding on your, some cladding on your home, some brick look cladding, that's all one size. So you got to kind of, I think it's like a 4x8 sheet. You put it up, and then you would put your vinyl or whatever around it. But commercially, everything's all cut to the shop drawing. So conceivably, and you know how these things work, conceivably, everything should arrive in the crate, all numbered to match the shop drawings,
right,
and just snap them up into place. So
no waste factor on that stuff.
No waste factor at all. So the installers really like it because it makes their job easy. As long as they can follow blueprints, they can snap these up.
So what about, let's say it's a steel stud wall assembly, but what if it's concrete? So what you do is core drill, so you can run the wire, run the electrical part through the wall assembly. Yeah.
You do, and
so you said you got a job going on right now at SMU, right?
We just signed on with SMU, the old Loyola building, and that's interesting. That's a nice segue into something else that you can do with this product. So I had thought when I took it on, it was just for new construction, but it's as much retrofit, or maybe more so for retrofits. So the Loyola building is it's an old kind of 70s precast type of building, and what's happened now is they put up newer buildings around it, so Loyola was kind of getting a little bit tired looking and that type of thing. So
like the 70s with that building.
Exactly. So Peter Connell's the architect down at DSRA, and so what we're going to do is we're going to clad two sides of that building in this cladding, and to what you spoke about, we're going to have to core drill.
For the wire.
For the wiring.
Is that every 4 feet, like at the perimeter of every
It's about every 4 feet.
Yeah.
It depends on the design and everything, but it's not a big thing.
So did you work that into the spec? I'm assuming you took the route of through the architect to get that in the spec, and now it's
Metrix did a lot of the legwork.
So you're the local rep here for that.
Yeah, exactly. So they've got a really good support system. So
So are
But,
you seeing metrics products like this in many specs of public tenders around HRM in Atlantic Canada?
It's
More and
just,
more?
you're going to see it, and
Just starting.
yeah, it's just starting because like any new product, there's the show me factor. So
Yeah.
there's, too good to be true or
Well,
whatever.
SME will be a great showpiece. If you're on a university campus, then
It'd be
why
great.
can't you be anywhere else?
It'd be a great showpiece, and so conceivably, the plan is with SMEW is we should be between the two sides of the building that we're doing. Plus, we're going to replace some of the windows with solar glass. So conceivably, we should be able to generate enough power in that building to do their common areas, their lobby, and
to light and heat their common areas.
exactly, and that's going to be huge for.
Do you have any numbers on the top of your head for like square foot of cladding per converted to kilowatts or
Yeah,
whatever?
it depends on the application.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on how much sun you're getting, and so
So
normally
those sides of SME is on the south side.
it is. Yeah. So they're going to get. Yeah, they're typically solar panels and solar cladding. Typically, they're about 22% efficient. That's kind of the bar that's been set. So that's kind of what you want to strive for. Now, interesting caveat when it comes to cladding.
Like that's capacity factor, right?
Capacity, exactly.
But
yeah.
solar's a lot higher than most renewable energy.
It is.
It has the highest capacity factor.
It has the
compared
highest capacity.
to wind. And,
Yeah. And, the exciting thing is, Dan, that, I mean, even in the case of a retrofit, but especially in new construction, I always tell guys say, well, how much is it? And, I'll throw a number out. But I say, what were you planning on using there? Well, we were thinking about using ACM panels. Well, what was your ACM going to cost you installed?
between $15, $20 to buy it, and then
Yeah,
12 to 15 to
probably.
install.
Let's say $30 in the wall, right?
Yeah.
So
what's this stuff?
you were going to spend that. So this stuff here, is probably going to cost you about $50, but it's going to give you a payback. So the way I position
not just
it,
a payback, and with the energy and lighting costs and stuff. I mean, you're going to get more points. You're going to get as far as your footprint
and there's grants.
There's a lot more than just
I mean, there's
strictly
government
dollar
grants out there that are going to offset that. So, I guess the point I'm making is what you need to do is say this is not an add-on; it's a replacement.
Yeah.
So
you don't lose anything aesthetically if you're the architect.
Well, no, exactly, no, and a lot of times you gain. I mean, I don't want to point fingers, but some of the stuff that's going on buildings right now is economical, but it's not the most attractive.
Plus, if you're an installer and you're installing, say, ceramic as opposed to that stuff can be between 5 and 12 pounds a square foot, where this stuff's only like a half a pound.
It should be easier for the installer. So if the developer or the architect is budgeting, I mean, what's masonry going for now? That must be upwards of $40 square foot. It's been a while since I was in that business, but let's say 35. So you were going to spend 35 on masonry. Well, for $15, you can have this and have a payback. So that's the way I approach it. Is you're not going to pay $50 or $60 square foot. You were going to pay for masonry anyway, so this is just is replacing what you were going to clad with anyway. So,
it's a really neat product. I mean, it's obviously you've got the supply for the job at St. Mary's, which just closed last week.
Yeah.
So that's the first one for this Matrix solar cladding, and I think. It's obviously you're going to see more of this stuff. It's going to be really popular. Like I'm sure a lot of building envelope and cladding companies are listening right now, and it's piquing their attention for sure.
It is,
and architects too, hopefully,
and I think we're seeing a new generation of architects now. I mean, you've been at this a long time too, and the new generation of architects. I mean, they're being taught this in school. They're being taught climate and spending much more time on things like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been teaching passive house construction and at Dell Architecture. I don't think so. Now it's
Or have
it's
a master's program for
or have a
sustainability
master
as an architect.
exactly. So sustainability program. So the new generation that's
This has
that's
got
in
to
now.
this has got to be an easy sell to architects in Atlantic Canada for sure with public tenders, but probably still a hard sell for when you're talking to private builders and developers. They're just
Well,
not,
and that's
I can
yeah,
spend $20 more a square foot right now, or
Yeah.
I can not. Really, is all that matters a lot of times on that front. But
Yeah, and that's, and you and I were talking earlier, and I said that's the challenge right now, and it's going to take some time. And so the government, to their credit, Nova Scotia government, and listen, I couldn't be more happy with the response and the help I've gotten from the Nova Scotia government. Tim Hallman, who's my MLA, who's the environment minister, he's met with me personally twice. He loves this. I showed this to him, and funny, the first time
you got the right inroad there.
I met with Tim was the day after he had presented his environmental plan, which said that, by 2030 we have to be off of coal. And I think at the time, he was wondering how we're going to do this.
Right, completely off of fossil fuels. By 2030 is a
Exactly.
Pretty
So
optimistic goal. I mean,
pretty
I
aggressive.
don't want to sound, ignorant about that. It's a great goal.
It's a great goal,
It's
and
just,
it's one we should strive for. But prior to,
But the idea is always to shift away from fossil fuels. I think
Always.
when it comes to renewables, it's a slow shift. It's not like
Yeah,
something's
yeah.
going to be obsolete.
Yeah,
So
it is.
This is a good start for.
So he
for-
looked
for
at it and
building
he
materials.
said, that's awesome. I mean, so they've already incorporated it into. You're going to see a lot of the government buildings now are going to have 25% of some sort of renewable in them. The issue being is that, as you know, the government's not building hospitals or schools every week or every month even. So although that's going to help in a couple of ways, that's going to set an example.
It feels like they are building them every month lately.
Yeah, it does sometimes. Yeah. I wish they build more actually, but but that's without my taxpayer hat on,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
But what they're doing, that plan is going to be great. It's going to set a good example, but it's really not going to make much of a dent overall in our carbon footprint. But in the meantime, you drive around Halifax and you see, 42, 43 cranes up here, Dan. And I drive by those and every one of them is a missed opportunity.
Well, this just seems like a really simple, straightforward with results. Like here's a solar panel
Yeah.
within a cladding system, all in one shot, and the results are right there. Bang.
The results are right there. So it's going to take some creativity on the part of the government as far as.
Is there programs right now for a developer who wanted to use that product? If you
Not
went to
that I'm
see it?
aware of. They're in talks, and I think once the spring ledge starts sitting again, you're going to see those conversations take place again.
Yeah.
But in fairness to this government, they've been in power 8 months, something like that. So, but I think there's a will and there's an appetite for it. So you're going to see those discussions. And listen, what's going to happen. Let's say they implement that in the private sector and they say, okay, a certain percentage of your building, if you're going to build in Nova Scotia, certain percentage needs to be some sort of renewable. And they're going to be upset and they're going to say, well, we just won't build in Nova Scotia. Well, yeah, you will. You will. You'll have to make some adjustments and everything. So my hope is that there's going to be a combination of legislation and reward. So legislation that says, you know what, guys, we need to implement these renewables. Reward being, here's a little bit of money for your pain and suffering. And it shouldn't take that, because the reward should be twofold. The reward is knowing that you're doing something good for the environment. Number two, you're getting money back in your power. So it's, the reward, I think, is there. We just need a long-term vision to see that reward but listen, there's a lot of really, really good developers in this city. that I think are open to this and are going to be open to it, and they're going to say, you know what, we'll.
Yeah, you can say money talks, and it's the bottom line when it comes to the end of the day. And there's a lot of truth to that. There's always going to be,
Yeah.
but a lot of them do have an eye for architecture, and they do have sustainability front and center and front of mind, and that means a lot to them as builders.
Yeah,
They're proud to build a building that has a better carbon footprint, regardless of.
Yeah, you're right. And I look at guys like, Peter Pauly at Polycorp. I mean, Peter's always been forward thinking and always, he's always considered the environment and everything. So there's guys like Peter that are going to look at this as a big opportunity and listen, it doesn't need to be Mitrix. There's so many innovative new products that are coming on board now that architects can.
But you got to have very few competitors locally, as far as manufacturing reps or agencies that are locally representing these manufacturers. You probably don't have a lot of competition with something like that.
No, I don't. But
yes.
Yet, and
that could change pretty fast.
Well, and thing is, there's the good and bad of how I started this business. So I get in on the ground floor with Mitrix. As I said earlier, I saw that news interview and called them up the next day thinking, oh, this is such a good product. They must have somebody in the East already. Well, they didn't, only because they hadn't gone to manufacturing. It was very early stage. They were still testing in 2021. So the good news is that I get in on the ground floor and got to secure the line. The bad news is that I haven't been able to sell anything yet. It's been all promotion and presentations and that type of thing, because we just went into manufacturing in January. So the sales cycle's stretched out a little bit. So it's, like I said, the good and the bad. The good is getting in on an innovative product line like this on the ground floor. The bad is that, the sales cycle is going to be a little longer.
Yeah, it's going to take some patience. It takes some time to get going, but hey, you got SMU now, and that's one down. And
that's one down, and
that's an Ellis-Don project, right?
That's an Ellis-Don project.
So whoever the cladding sub is,
interesting how that went too.
So you'll be making some site visits there, just for some context on what it means to be a rep or an agency. You'll be going to site to visit the guys installing.
Absolutely, and I've talked about doing a corporate video, and that's part of what I want to work into it is, document this process from point A to Z type of thing, and watch everything from drilling the holes in the masonry to putting the Z-girts up, to putting the panels up, and watching the lights. The best part's going to be watching everything go up and then flip the light switch and realize that that's running off those panels. That's amazing. So
no, it is. It's very cool, and I think that probably would be a great idea, because one, you're doing that at an institution that's pretty core to the Halifax South End and downtown, St. Mary's University, and it'll be the first time that you're going to have some power generated from the cladding product. So it's really neat,
really exciting. And it's funny how things come around. So in my last business, when I was importing aluminum panels from China, we were looking at a project. Killam is actually retrofitting a lot of their apartment buildings right now. Same type of thing, Dan. They got 70s era, old, tired-looking brick masonry buildings and window.
They're down in Quinpool, right? Some refacing there. Or that's just a rental, maybe.
That's just a rental, yeah. So they started one. I think it's up in the Rockingham area, up in that area, but anyway, what they're doing there is they're recladding it with a panel, and that was prior to Mitrix. So they're trying to, again, like St. Mary's was with Loyola, they're trying to modernize their buildings and put some nice bright colors on it and that type of thing. But now they get the opportunity to do that, but have it generate solar power for the units. So that's really cool and exciting. So there's,
good segue into your other partner, Solar Vision. That's outdoor solar lighting, and I assume that as a rep, as an agency, you'd want to connect with the municipality on that, or see some new
Yeah.
parks being built with some pendant lights that are solar powered. And I've seen some of the videos that they have. They're really cool product there too. Any progress with that, or?
Yeah, so I just signed on with them last week, which was really exciting, and I'd been looking at that line and a couple of different lines over the winter months, and really, to be honest with you, Dan, I thought that the learning curve with Mitrix and the amount of time that was taking in presentations and everything, that I really had to put my time on that. And now that's kind of up and running, and we're generating a buzz and that type of thing. So I started looking in the winter at different products. So I had looked at the Solar Vision line out of Quebec, and I really wanted to. I've been really trying to stay with Made in Canada whenever possible. I think there's a huge benefit to that. Some would call me a hypocrite because 2 years ago I was putting panels on a container ship from China, and that was spouting pollution, that type of thing. But I really feel there's a benefit, and there's a push towards Made in Canada. So Solar Vision is up in Shawinigan, Quebec, and they've been around about 10 years and growing every year, and they've done probably about 400 projects across Canada. So they're not your Home Depot type of lighting, solar lighting system that you would buy and you and your wife would put it in your backyard. It's heavy duty, weather resistant, street lighting, park lighting, that type of thing.
What about parking lots for some of these new developments? I mean, that'd be a good
parking
fit there,
lots, anything like that. They've done projects on wharves, right out into the, going out
parks,
into the water,
community
parks, anything like that. So many benefits,
like
especially
even a community soccer field or university hockey rink, or
they've done a
outdoor
couple of
rink or
dog
something.
parks, for instance.
Yeah.
The great thing is you don't need to dig a trench. Besides the savings that you're getting on the,
just need the concrete pad.
you just need a concrete pad, whip it into place. The other exciting thing is, for the most part, we need to be cognizant of vandalism, that type of thing. So, for the most part, they're pretty much vandal proof in that your actual solar panel that's drawing the power is actually way up by the street light. So unless you're going to climb that pole, you're not going to destroy that or anything like that. But they've got so many applications, and they've done. So we're already looking at a couple of projects. I've been working with. I was telling you earlier. Really got drawn into or drawn towards working with different First Nations groups, and because I realized very early on that our Indigenous people, they, as I said, they were environmentalists before it was cool. Everybody's jumping on the environmentalism train.
It's their heritage, really.
And their heritage, and they've been preaching for 100 years that we're not being kind to Mother Earth, and we're ruining our water, and we're so it was really neat to kind of start networking and communicating with these folks. So I joined and the internet can be a great thing sometimes. It can be a bad thing, but a networking group called ICE, which is Indigenous Clean Energy. And this is a group right across Canada that's, stakeholders of First Nations communities, groups, and that type of thing they have legitimate plans to put renewable energy strategies into place. So I started liaising and communicating with a few of those groups, and just, I can say I learned so much in a short period of time. It's just been an eye-opener. What's really impressed me about every chief I've spoken to and every council member is how committed they are and how organized they are. They're very committed towards clean energy and renewables, and so I've been kind of in touch with them and working with them. So there's a group in my old hometown, Miramichi. So I grew up probably with about five First Nations communities within, a half-hour distance. A lot of my friends I played hockey with where I spent time on the reserves growing up and got to know them. But they've actually, in Miramichi, they formed a co-op. So they've got about 5 or 6 different reservations all within that area. But they formed a co-op so that they see, strength in numbers type of thing. So instead of 5 little reservations, they're one big reservation. And they've created an energy board where they're sourcing out ideas like this. So we're already looking at things with the solar vision lighting for their communities. They're very committed to doing things right, and so.
And you've been dealing with some First Nations communities in Quebec and Alberta as well.
Quebec and Alberta, and because again the strength of the internet, I guess, and I've been speaking with a very big reserve in Kawanaki outside of Montreal. Mm-hmm. I think probably the largest reservation in Canada, if not the top 2 or 3. And they are very forward thinking in implementing green programs. The exciting thing is it's a new generation, Dan. That's what's driving this. I mean, listen, I'm going to retire, God willing, in 5 or 6 years, hopefully. But the future's in good hands because, in the reservations, their young people are becoming educated. They have their own architects, their own engineers, and they're all focused on green energy and renewables, and they've been educated in the climate and everything. So it's really exciting. The thing I take from my talks with First Nations folks is that in spite of what many people may think, they don't want a handout. They want to be self-sufficient. They want a hand up, to use an old cliche. And, they work hard to better their communities, and they want to better their communities. And they want independence and sovereignty. So the renewable aspect with First Nations communities is huge because it's probably in the top 3 of their list of things that they'd like to accomplish in the next years.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Barry. See within the vision of on the front of renewable products for building materials with the lighting and the cladding products from Matrix, and then you also have another partner. I think we should fit in with Rainstick, which is a really cool water savings.
Yeah, it's funny how that came about. So LinkedIn is a great source. If I can give any advice to a young entrepreneur or sales rep or anything, spend some time on LinkedIn because it's just a wealth of information. And I just happened to see a post about this Rainstick thing, and they had won an award. And they're a young couple, Alicia and Sean McFetrich from Toronto. And they're not engineers, but they came up with this concept of recycling water and reusing it. And they're very committed to bettering the planet and everything. So I just reached out to Alicia on LinkedIn and said, look, I just got into renewables, and I think this is such a neat product. And so, sometimes you never hear back from these people, but to her credit, she got back to me, and we had a few conversations and found that we were on the same page. So in a nutshell, basically what they've been able to do is invent a shower that recycles 80% of your shower water. So
in real time, right?
In real time, exactly.
Yeah.
So
which is the impressive part.
Yeah. Now, before everybody watching this gets grossed out, it's really simple how they do it. So the water comes out. They've got a filtration system in the bottom that catches all the hair and that type of thing. and then it goes right back up the tube. And as it's going up the tube to the shower head again, it's actually being treated with UV light that kills all of the bacteria that might have been in the water. And then as it comes out the shower head again, there's 20% of fresh hot water feeds back into it just to keep it warm and that type of thing. They've actually they've invented an app that goes with it, so you can watch the app. In real time, you can see exactly how much water you're the water savings, energy savings. It'll tell you when to clean or change the filter. Everything.
I mean, for anyone building a new house who has is eager, which a lot of people are, to live a more sustainable, conscious lifestyle. It's like, you'd think that those what's the sales process been like for that, and can it be spec'd in commercial for a multi-unit res?
Yeah, it can be. So
think of the water savings for a 90 unit or something, right? I mean,
exactly. So much like Mitrex was, Rainstick again, young, so they've gone through a bit of proof of concept and received their certification, their CSA testing, and everything that they needed. So we're really just going into production and launch now. So our plan, what I'm tasked with right now, using my connections with various First Nations communities, is we'd like to put 10 or a dozen of these into new homes that are being built on various First Nations communities. And we'll do that. We're speaking with ACOA and different government groups to help fund that. And the idea being that we could have kind of a few months to get these in, to monitor them, to tweak it a little bit. And we're doing pre-orders right now for fall delivery. So, but it's, again, exciting. These, I call them kids, are in their 20s, Alicia and Sean, but every trade show they go to, they win award after best design innovation. They were to Vegas after Christmas for the big kitchen and bath show, and they won a ton of awards there. So it's really exciting, and it's a great product. But we take water for granted here. We really do. I mean, we've always had tons of it. We're sitting looking out the window. I mean, there's tons of water
whereas
right there.
in some countries, it's a commodity like oil.
It is, and I can tell you from the reading I've done, it's coming to a neighborhood here soon, unfortunately, because we're starting to see more and more with climate change, Dan.
Absolutely.
We're starting to see wells going dry in Nova Scotia. When you never heard of that happening, 10, 20, 50 years ago, there was always plenty of water. So water is going to be your next big issue when it comes to climate change, and it's coming sooner rather than later. But where it's really relevant, I believe, is with many of these First Nations communities who sadly have had to fight with the government and struggle for clean water or enough water. So that's the real exciting part, is that,
It's not just in where they're located with connecting to municipalities,
some of
water
it is,
supply?
Some of it is, especially as you get in, I'm working with one group in Kirkland Lake, Ontario right now. I mean, as you get into the north, some of these communities have been neglected pretty badly. And, the government has talked about fixing these water supply issues for years, but, it doesn't always get done. So this is exciting for them. And I'm working on a passive house with a First Nations community in Kirkland Lake area. And they want to put one, we're talking about doing the Mitrex and then on the outside of the passive house, and then maybe the Rainstick shower inside. And then, that's going to be kind of our model home type of thing. And then we can go from there. So, but yeah, I mean, even the passive house, so passive houses are meant to be net zero if they're ideally built. Well, we can be into the negatives with things like Mitrex and Rainstick.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
So you had rain stick metrics, and some of your pendant lights.
Some of your lighting, and
what about a roof product as to finish off the envelope? Is it,
well, no, and that's
metrics does supply roof.
They do residential roofing. So
Yeah.
and that's the exciting part too about metrics. So
they got the whole envelope covered.
The whole envelope covered, and the two biggest objections that we've heard from years, and I heard when talking to architects, is aesthetics and cost. Those when you brought up renewables, it was like, okay, you're not going to stick those ugly glass panels on the roof of my nice bungalow. You know, it looks like something out of the space station or something.
But maybe after time, there's been ways to improve the aesthetics and
and that's what Metrix has done with the BIPV technology. Now we have rooftop solar panels that look like shingles, black asphalt, gray asphalt, slate, whatever, so that you can put and
it's basically just a thin layer of that
just a very thin layer of solar cells that's in behind the face, and that's so, and then we imprint whatever pattern we want onto it to. So that's, as I talk to various solar installers, the solar installers have lost a lot of business over the years because they're in the house doing a presentation to the husband and wife. This is what I'm going to save you, blah, blah, blah. This is what it's going to cost. This is going to be your payback. Yeah, that all looks good because the payback has really narrowed down. It used to be not too long ago. It was going to be 15, 20 years before you got your money back on solar. Now it's about 5 with the new pricing and technology and programs.
Well, especially with the cost of oil with the happenings.
Every time that goes up, every time, I was talking to a solar installer in PEI yesterday. He said every time that oil price goes up, my phone starts ringing. So, but where Mitrix and other like products come into play now is that solar installer no longer has to walk away because of aesthetics. The homeowner who would have said, look,
you're not sacrificing.
I want to be green and everything, but you're not putting those ugly things on my roof, can now have panels that are virtually going to blend right in to what they have.
Oddly enough, that seems really the maybe biggest issue in renewables. Like even with wind farms,
it is.
A lot of the issue is like, what are those going to look like on the skyline?
Nobody wants one of those big windmills in their backyard and the noise and everything. So and that's an interesting segue there as well. So that's kind of next on my list to fill out my offering or my.
You'll be diversified with solar, water,
and solar, water, and wind. So wind is next. There's a lot of really, really neat stuff happening in wind right now.
With building products?
It's more outdoor type of stuff, but there's companies in Europe.
But still, like your pendant lights. I mean, these are things that you still need on a new commercial property.
You're still going to need
in the parking lot or
so you're going to make them solar.
Yeah,
but if you want to cover off the aesthetics issue, there's wind manufacturers now that are actually manufacturing fences that you could put in your backyard or alongside the apartment building, an 8-foot high fence. And rather than have these big round, windmills with the huge turbines, the individual spindles on the fence posts turn with the wind. So that's amazing.
Wow.
So now you can go to an architect or a homeowner even, and he's saying, well, I need to put a fence in anyway, so I could have this fence that's really decorative. There's a company I was talking to last week. They're out of Holland, and theirs look like tulips. Go figure. But they had these nice, in various heights, and depending on how many kilowatts of power you want to generate, they're different sizes. But they actually, if you were to put them in your backyard or whatever, they just look like a flower decoration turning in the wind. So
you're in talks to rep some of those products and try to get those local.
I am, and ideally, I've had some discussions with NSBI, Nova Scotia Business. And ideally, what I would like to do is get one of these companies that's very early on and manufacturing in Europe. And what I would like to do is get them to come to Nova Scotia and set up production here. And they've indicated that the money is there if we have the right business plan and the right. So I would really like to see that, have them actually bring a product that's early stage development, and we could actually, we have the manufacturing capacity here. We have the universities to work with testing and that type of thing. So everything's here, and the government has expressed an appetite that they would like to fund such projects. So that's kind of what I'm ideally looking at, is that a lot of this European technology, if we could actually manufacture it in Nova Scotia, it'd be great. So
yeah, that's really neat. It's really neat to get an inside look on. I think what you're doing with focusing on, the green building products, the renewable products, and I call them building products. Well, the cladding is, and obviously the rain stick. It's going to be in the plumbing spec, and then with the lighting in the parking lot or the fence with it, you're diversified. And I don't know if there's any other, if you want to just speak strictly of agencies or sales reps that are focusing only on
No, I think
products.
I met, and but like any other good thing, once the trail's blazed, I guess, I'm sure you're going to see more follow.
Yeah.
But
and for people outside the industry too, like I think as a people might think, well, what's an agency? What's a rep? It's a local representative for a product line, but you really got to know those materials if you're going to be dealing with architects and guys, builders installing and. Material knowledge is pretty key, and knowing the specs.
And that's the thing, and
a lot of relationships.
What I've tried to do is, since I've gone into renewables, is to offer more of a turnkey. So acting as a consultant, where almost a project manager type of approach, where I can look after everything as far as.
And you'll outsource some engineering.
I'll
stuff
outsource the engineering.
Company.
I've got a good guy that's got 30 years in the solar business, an engineer that will help me with design, and I've got some architects that'll help me and that type of thing. So I think that's where the market's going, is that building owners, First Nations communities, what have you, they really want that turnkey. These are great products, but as you know, coming from this business, I mean, products only as good as the design and the install. And I really think you need to be hands-on with that. And so the first step is absolutely, as you alluded to, knowing the product inside and out. And after that, knowing, I'm able to use my architectural background and design background to help implement these things, and basically acting as a bridge with between the architects and the manufacturers. So, and another interesting kind of development is, and I really believe, Dan, that as a business owner, you really need to you can't be too set in your ways. You need to have a vision and a plan, but you also need to be open to going a little bit this way in a direction that you hadn't anticipated when you started. And one interesting part about that was I've been doing a little bit of work with the province and various groups that are addressing the homeless situation and low-income housing, because it occurred to me very early on that it makes very little sense for us to provide somebody with an affordable, nice place to live.
And what's the point if they got to spend that much
if they're spending that much on oil or power? So, my talks with the government, with Minister Lohr in housing, for instance, has been, look, we want to go in that green direction anyway. So we now have the technology that we can outfit these, at least offset their power bill somewhat. And Rainstick comes into play there as well, their water and power bill and that type of thing. So that $300 or $400 a month that was being spent on oil and electricity, they can take that and put that towards food, towards clothing, towards education, that type of thing. So And again, to the province's credit, they've been open to that, and they seem to be on the same page. So, been working a little bit with a chap up in Fredericton by name of Marcel Lebrun, and Marcel started a program called the 12 Neighbors Initiative. And he's a philanthropist, made all of his money in IT and sold his company. But to his credit, he's bought a bunch of land in Fredericton on the north side, and he's building tiny homes. And those tiny homes are going to be part of a community, and he's going to equip them with solar, again, so that people aren't, saddled with huge power bills. But the exciting part about that is he's not only giving them a place to live, he's building a community center, for instance, where the residents are actually helping build these tiny homes, and they're building picnic tables and that type of thing. In this community center, there's going to be, a nurse is going to come once or twice a week to help with counseling and meds and that type of thing.
And low cost to operate these buildings.
Low cost to operate. So, I see a real, in renewables, I see a real opportunity in that. That needs to be part of the discussion if we're going to.
What's the tagline? Remarkably renewable?
Remarkable renewables.
Renewables.
Remarkable
AzSpecd Solutions.
renewables. So, yeah.
I know it's very, very neat stuff and cutting edge, and it's it's been a treat to hear all about AzSpecd Solutions and the different your different partners and the innovative products, and I know it must be it's definitely a challenge to get things getting things spec'd for the first time, but it seems like you got all the bases covered. And I was wondering if just finishing up, just back on the topic of sales and the fact that you had a Bachelor of Arts. I just think there's something neat there. You think about, whether you call it business development or sales, or any entrepreneur, any business owner is essentially a salesman in a lot of ways. You're selling yourself, you're selling what your vision is, you're selling to your employees, you're selling what a valuable service or product to people. So, someone like you with 35 years in sales, this reminds me of one of my favorite books called The Greatest Salesman in the World. You ever heard of that by Og Mandino?
I've read it.
Have you read it?
I've read
It's
it,
all the different articles of him in the marketplace, and then how to separate, the rules he would live by, not to take your work home to your personal life, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Really neat book. And I just think it's, it's unique, your journey. And, it might not seem that, valuable to certain people, like the arts degree and stuff. But if you can learn how to write and the power of words and learn how to articulate and express yourself and your ideas, because a lot of people have great ideas, but they don't have the sales skills, and someone's got to be hard to do that. And as an entrepreneur and a salesman, just the psychology of sales and how to connect with people, because a lot of people are in jobs now where it's like, how many cold calls did you make? How many emails did you send? And then, how do you connect with people in a way that is meaningful without them feeling like all you want is to get something from them, or just, it's just a transactional experience. And
it's interesting.
What are some of the things that you would give advice on sales to people, like that, for someone like you who's been doing it for so long?
Yeah, it's it's funny. I've worked for many sales managers in my time, and some good, some bad. I think, I cut my teeth with Shaw Brick with a guy by the name of Terry McDowell, and Terry was my first real sales manager, and he was old school. It was relationship building. He was take somebody out for a game of golf, and just people listened to, and he knew his stuff. He knew his stuff. So I think what I learned at a very early stage of my career is to listen to the customer. I see too many young sales reps walking into an architect's office now and starting with the pitch.
Yeah.
And they haven't even, or the developer or the GC, and they haven't even taken the time to sit and listen to what the customer wants. They're so focused on just getting that pitch out there and all the benefits of their product and how much money they can save you and everything. So,
but they don't understand the client they're dealing with.
They don't.
Understand their motives. They don't understand how they think.
They haven't taken the time because they think that their job is to just get out and pitch, and
you might want to change your whole aura and temperament when you're talking to certain different types of clients, right? I mean, you're going to go deal with a cladding installer on site. You're going to talk to him different than you're going to go talk to an architect at
and that's a good point, And one thing that I've been very good
everybody's
at,
different.
Anybody that's succeeded in our business, in the construction business, has been able. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, I've been on job sites up to my knees in mud, bringing a bricklayer coffee, right, and talking, looking at a job that he's doing, trying to stay on his good side, and then look at my watch and say, "Holy crap! I got to be downtown for a meeting with Architects 49 in an hour.
Into a suit and
do your super bad thing and change and get your steel toes off and put your dress shoes on." So, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you're on the job site. You need to learn to communicate at everybody's level. So, the GC or the contractor, or the mason, he doesn't want me talking to him about technical stuff or.
No,
he wants his
coffee. And
he wants his coffee.
Talk about the hockey game.
Wants to talk about the hockey game.
You listen to his problems for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Wife left him and everything else, and then, but conversely, when you go see the architect, it's all business. With the architect, it's like 5 minutes of nicety. Hey, how's the family? But okay, here's what I need, and then you need to bring yourself from the cursing and swearing level with the contractor to the technical level with the architect.
And what's the point? The point is to connect with them, right?
To connect
They're not going
with
to connect with you unless you're on their level,
and
whatever it may be.
Yeah, and the other thing I've learned too, that's if I can give one piece of advice, is don't pretend you know everything. I don't know everything.
Yeah,
I don't. I mean, think
about Brene Brown's book, about vulnerability. It's
vulnerability, exactly.
New York bestseller. New York Times bestseller a couple of years ago. There's a reason why. There's a place in the business world for being vulnerable and just saying, look, I don't have any idea.
No, and you know what? And my experience has been that rather than, you telling that, when you tell that architect, the fear for young sales reps is that architect is going to think, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where, I believe it's quite the opposite.
They respect you.
If I take a notepad in and I say, you know what, honestly, I have an idea, but I don't want to lead you astray.
Yeah.
Let me get that information. I'll get back to you. And then if I get back to him within the next 24 hours, whether it's a phone call or an email, with the answer, because I've talked to the engineer that invented it or whatever, they're like, number one, they know. A lot of times they're surprised that you actually do follow up and give them what they ask for. And number two, they know that you're going to give them the correct information. And that I think, Dan, above anything else in sales is the important thing. Don't try to be all things to all people. Mm-hmm. So, you can't know it all. So.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, Barry, and I'd love to talk to you about that stuff for days. I just think there's so much there in the psychology of sales, and any of our lives are only as good as how healthy our relationships are. And sales is all about relationships and communication, but nobody's got it figured out completely. It's always a mystery of how to balance relationships.
Especially now, and technology's changing so quick, Dan, and everything.
Yeah.
But interesting, and we can kind of close off on this. We're talking about sales managers and different approaches and that type of thing. So in the past, I've worked for sales managers that have been out of Toronto, Montreal, or whatever. And, you said about doing 8 calls a day or whatever. And I've had sales managers saying, I want your call reports and I want to see 8 calls a day on there. And I used to argue with these guys. This is the Maritimes. We're not on Yonge Street in downtown Toronto where I'm just going to go bang, 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 bang and call on one architect after another. Plus, I can achieve that ratio, that call ratio that you want, but they're probably not going to be good quality calls. It's going to be, hey, Dan, how you doing? Need anything? Okay, good, but there's one call. So I think we're really different here in Atlantic Canada in that our customers really expect and respect a relationship. They don't want to. Now, if they're in a rush, if I'm
And
taking up
retention,
the,
like this, they want someone to
retention.
deal with for the next 5 years.
Exactly. They want consistency. They're tired of that revolving door of sales reps coming in and out. So, but they want your attention, and they don't care whether you're doing 8 calls a day or whatever. So, it's really different here. Now in Toronto, I've gone up there when I was in the brick business. I went up and I used to do calls with Brampton Brick up there. I used to go with their sales rep. But they were very much like that. They were like 8 calls a day. I got to get my calls in. And I was just like, we were just getting going on the presentation, and the sales rep I'm with is putting on her jacket because she wants to go on to the next call. And that seems to be okay in the bigger cities, but it really doesn't work down here. So
It's a lot to do with the culture, right? It's
a lot to do with the culture, and just everything moves faster up there. And so.
Well, Barry, thanks for the sales advice, and hopefully you'll help some people out who are listening. And it's been great to hear about AzSpecd Solutions and all the sustainable products. Very interesting stuff, and good luck with this new job.
Yeah.
And we'll keep an eye out for your corporate video, see how that stuff gets installed. And it's been a treat to talk to you. And anybody who's been in sales for 35 years, you got my vote. You got some thick skin to make it that long. So.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think the belly really speaks to the 35. A lot of buffets and Tim Hortons in there. So, thanks for having me, Dan. I appreciate it, and and best of luck to you guys in future. Keep growing this. I think it's a great avenue for the industry, and long overdue. So.
Thanks, Barry.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Okay,
Cheers.
thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Atlanta Construction Podcast. Be sure to follow us on any podcast platform you use. You can also find us on LinkedIn and Instagram at Atlanta Construction Podcast. Be sure to send us a comment or a review. We'd love to engage with you.